All right, everybody. It's 5:30. I'm happy to see so many of you joining this week's webinar on regional seed mixes. And my name is Dirk Albach. I'm professor at the University of Oldenburg and partner of co-PI of the project EXPBIO with many colleagues from the North Sea region, from Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, and Belgium. And we are all interested in restoration and how to increase biodiversity in our environment. We have a website where you can find more information on the EXPBIO project, but this webinar is focusing on the issue of seed mixes, how to make seed mixes and what to do with seed mixes. And last week we had more of the focus on how to make seed mixes, but today I'm happy to welcome Tom Junge and Johnny Benjes from Immerbunt, which is a young company started here in Oldenburg and in 2021, based on the idea of, it's not enough just to make flour mixes, especially since many people are already afraid of all the things to consider, which we partly heard last week. And then also the big issue, yes, now we have a flower strip. Now all the bees and butterflies will come and then everything is ready. So no, that's not all of the story what to do with flower strips. And Immerbund has made a company out of the topic. And I'm really happy that you agreed to join in this webinar and to tell us more about your company idea, what to do with this. And with that, I think we are still increasing in numbers. Some people joining a bit late, but we're now 29 people. I would say let's start. I hand over the microphone to Tom.
Well, Dirk, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me well.
Perfect.
Great. I just had some technical issues, so I had to leave the meeting and then come back in. And can you also already see my screen? I just tried to share it. I guess you can see it, right?
I have a black screen at the moment.
Okay. So let me try that again.
Looks like it's building up.
I did see it.
I can see
I
it
have
as
a
well.
picture.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for this lovely introduction. We really appreciate it to get this opportunity to present, and we're in touch with the Interact program every now here and then, especially also through my old university in Groningen, also through Johnny in the University of Oldenburg. So thank you so much for having us. As Dirk already said, we are a German startup. We started in Oldenburg, and some of our fellow students also studied at the University of Oldenburg. They will introduce themselves, of course, but for now I have the first word. And again, thank you so much for being here and taking a look at this brilliant little small idea that actually matters to all of us. So indeed, we have the aim to protect the environment. And this is a startup idea, which is probably quite surprising because one or the other might think, well, it's a charity cause or thing to protect the environment, but no, by now it's actually reasonable to start a company that has the mission to protect environment and ecosystems. And yeah, you might be familiar with the reasons. We will take a look on that today at some point, but much more interesting would be the topic for today, to maximize the ecological value of private and public premises. before we take a look into that, let me first introduce myself in a short sentence. I grew up on an organic farm in Oldenburg and became witness of a drastically changing environment. So this motivated me to create and start Immerbunt back in 2020 with my student fellow from Groningen. And what we're doing now will be part of the presentation. By now I'm the CEO, really glad. And yep, as I said, I studied in Groningen. And before we dig into the details, I'd like to give the word real quick to my fellow colleagues, to Johnny.
Hello all together, and thanks from my side as well for inviting us and having the opportunity to present here. I hope you can understand me well. My name is Johnny Benjes. I'm ecologist and a planner at Immerbunt, for Immerbunt, and I have studied agricultural science in my bachelor in Göttingen, and right now I'm a student in the end phase of my studies in landscape ecology at the University of Oldenburg.
Thank you, Johnny. You will keep over in just a couple of minutes, but let me first ask you a question again. Is it really that bad that we need to start a company to protect biodiversity? And the clear answer again here is yes, it is. We gained quite some experience over the past couple of years, and we would like to share this information and experiences with you to make your next flower meadow project successfully. And I'd like to make a short comparison, for example, to food. Not everything that looks good is also healthy. So you really need to look into it and what's inside. And this is a great explanation or example to why regionally certified flower meadows and seeds are quite important. And we will learn a little bit more about how and give you our best tips and tricks. So talking about Immerbunt, you already heard we started around 4 years ago in Oldenburg. And here you see my student fellow, Felix from Groningen. We had a great idea and we thought, okay, why don't we try to build a company that has the purpose to protect the environment? And here we go. By now we run nationwide sustainability projects and our headquarters are now in Frankfurt. Still we have our hearts in Oldenburg and we are there. For example, I'm driving there tonight from here to have a project there, but still we sit in Frankfurt now. And since 2024, we merged with the Immerland group. So we're not just planning such projects, by now we're also putting them into places, realizing them and maintaining them. And we do all this by connecting economy, society, and agriculture. What that means, you will hear in a second. Our mission is to create additional 1 million square meters of habitats by 2027. And we do this through collaboration of education, local impact, together with companies and farmers, because the future of our planet depends on it, and also the future of my kids, maybe also yours. Why? Well, because it needs new ways to approach the biodiversity crisis, in addition to the ones we have already. And we think that problems can be solved much faster with an economical approach, because it causes imitation and might be interesting for others to look into that as well. And because environmental protection is not just a charity cause, it's our responsibility. Our services, let me talk about that also for a second. We do environmental measures on agricultural land in cooperation with farmers. We develop customized concepts with public and private companies. And also we do environmental measures on company premises and sites. And this topic, this branch, the environmental measures on company sites, will be our focus for today. And we would like to share how we approach this branch and service. Why are people, companies, or majorities are working with us? Well, you might have heard about the EU taxonomy and the CSRD reporting directive, because they clearly have to. They identified it as a problem and now they try to approach this problem with a new reporting standard. It's also about employer and branding and engagement. 1 of 3 applicants chooses their future employee, in addition to the engagement considering environmental factors. And it's also about competitiveness. Last but not least, about regional engagement. And in this photo, you see one of our blooming boxes that we, for example, place in urban areas in cooperation with sponsors and other companies. So let me take you through our process. How does a cooperation and a process with us work? Well, first of all, we always have a personal kickoff where we just get to know each other, followed by an on-site appointment where we conduct a need analysis. So a really specific measure for each individual property. And Johnny will take you through the details in just a minute. After that, we define a framework and an ultimate goal. So might it be interesting to include your employees, or would it be interesting also to link an educational project with this thing that we're doing together in cooperation with you? Based on that, we develop a concept, we realize that and manage the entire operational section. And then we maintain and monitor in order to talk about whether it was successful or not. And as I just started, one of the branches is working with farmers, and I brought you one of my favorite examples for each branch. You see here an agricultural field. It was an acre, and also in Oldenburg, and quite wet, so it's pretty difficult to operate and run crop production on this field. And we use it for a new flower meadow, which is on this spot for already 4 years now, linking different habitats. For example, you see the wet area in the top right on this photo, the forest area and the different section of the flower meadows. And this in combination links different habitats in order to engage ecological value and benefit. By now, we have raised around 250,000 square meters all over Germany. And it's also a profitable measure for farmers because we sponsor them with a little environmental bonus because they have crop losses. They cannot produce crops on these fields, and we compensate that for the ecological measure that they run with us. The second one, talking about individual concepts, is mainly focused on educational projects that we run with companies or majorities in cooperation with schools. And here you see again this blooming flowering box combined with a lesson for schools. We brought biodiversity, planting and harvesting vegetables and fruits into elementary schools. So this is also one very important factor you need to consider in the whole biodiversity crisis. How do we educate people, and especially children, the next generation that are fighting this crisis? And where we conducted around, I don't know, 50 to 20 workshops with over 300 people. Last but not least, and this is the focus for today, I brought an example of one company premises that looks quite sealed, but you see every here and then you have, or every here and there you have spots to also do something well for biodiversity. And by now we have finalized over 20 company premises and raised additional habitats for biodiversity. Really important here is that they being adapted in the surroundings. And what does that mean? Will Johnny explain in a second as well. So how does most of the properties really look like that we look at? You see it here. It's quite a desert of grass on even soil, and then we kick in. We even see a lot of stone beds, and this is a problem because they have a lot of potential that we can foster through replantation and with a new ecological concept. So what we do is basically we always compare the status quo to the ecological potential, and then we develop certain measures in order to unlock the potential. So this happens through an eco-fit in the surroundings, surround, and ensuring in long-term existence. And what does that actually mean with practical examples? This will be explained by Johnny.
Yes, moving on to our fundament. So what do we look at? Which factors do we consider when we want to plan company premises? This is visualized here in this circle, and I'm just going once around to introduce our measures and the things we take a look at. Starting in the top right with the organic resource management. So we include, for example, compost areas, Benjes hedges or deadwood hedges, and we integrate utilization concepts. So with the goal that the organic matter that grows on the company area has a second life by being reused in different kind of measures. Then employer engagement, which is important because you have to integrate everybody that is a part of it and make them feel that they are a part of it as well. And you can do that, for example, with kitchen gardens, with crops that can be harvested. We do workshops there. We create staff areas so that that the staff, the employees, have an area outside where they can feel the nature, and we combine it with information science so that everybody also knows why which measure was taken and what it does, for example, for biodiversity. We create bird habitats by integrating the existing vegetation. So we look at what's valuable and how can we improve it. Tree management, so to keep the trees vital and healthy. Benjes hedges, I've seen that in the this is a concept. It's in Germany. Those are deadwood hedges, and they're called Benjes hedges because of my great uncle. It has established in Germany as a term for that, which is quite funny. So yeah, moving on. Bird habitats. So like tree management is important, and also additionally creating nesting opportunities. Climate adaptation gaining importance, especially in the future with changing climate conditions. And part of that is the soil management and water management. So how can we make the soil take up more water, that it is that the plants grow better even though there's a drought, and if through evaporation cool down the environment. We want to create additional infiltration areas, so we take away stone surfaces, for example, make it more to the open soil that the rainwater can infiltrate into the ground and doesn't run off. Facade greenings, which cool down the environment by evaporating water. We plant trees and shrubs, wildflower meadows instead of lawn, which can dry out really quickly in dry seasons, which are going to be more often in the future with the climate change. Then we take a look at plant diversity and flowering opportunities. So we create flowering stripes, flowering shrubs, or create productive garden plants with the aim to diversify the plant biodiversity. And also we create nesting sites, for example, for wild bees, because we cannot only provide food in form of the flowers, but we also have to take a look at nesting sites. Moving on, there's a little overview of different measures. Nesting aids, we've talked about it. We do a lot of traditional orchards, which have a big biodiversity because of the combination of the meadow below and the trees. And also is nice for the companies because trees can be harvested, can be eaten, of course, with regional fruit trees. We do perennial flower beds. Move on, Tom. So urban greening measures. We take the envelope into account as well. For example, the roof, where we can plant plants, dry stone walls, shrubs, and trees. The deadwood hedges again, sand beds down here as nesting opportunities for wild bees that nest below ground, and also for plants that are adapted to extreme sandy or dry conditions. And of course, we plant flower meadows with regional seed mixtures, which is the topic of this webinar. And we dive into that a little bit deeper now. So why regional flower mixes? In the last seminar, we've already heard a lot about the benefits of regional seeds and how they are produced actually. And in the next seminar, I've seen there will be Saatenzeller, who will talk probably about this in detail as well. So this is just a short recap. The paragraph 40 of the Nature Conservation Law in Germany states that the use of non-native regional plant material in the free nature needs authorization. So you can't just plant anything anywhere. You have to take a look at this. Company sites and agricultural areas where we make most of our measures usually are not considered as free nature. But we use regional seed mixtures anyways because they have a lot of benefits. For one, biodiversity obviously is defined as the diversity of species, the diversity of habitats, and also the genetic diversity. And by using regional genetics and keeping the genetic diversity alive by using regional origins, regional genetics, this is a direct impact to improve or to conserve biodiversity. Some benefits of regional seeds. So evolutionary, there have been adaptations of plants to the environmental conditions. This can be the climate, the temperature, the rainfall, the soil conditions. And the plants in an area, they have adapted to that. And the regional genetics, therefore, of a plant species are best adapted to the conditions in that region. So they will just grow better. On the other hand, there are dependencies between animals and plants. One example is that 1/3 of the wild bees is oligogalactic, meaning they only use one plant species or few plant species. And this can have possible problems for the dependent animals, not only if the species that they're depending on is not there, but also if the wrong genetics are there. So if it is the regional genetic of a different area, it could be that the flower timing is different. And a wild bee or a butterfly which develops needs the flower at the right time. So if it flowers later or too early and is gone already, this could cause possible problems. So animals and plants have co-evolutionarily adapted towards one another and are dependent on one another's properties. So now we said, okay, we want to use regional plants, but we have to know now, what do we want to use? So which mixture, which tree do we want to use on the site? And to know that, we have to make a site analysis. Most important is the soil. Why is that so? Because depending on the conditions of the soil, different plants will prevail according to their ecological niche. And if the plants don't match the condition on the site, they either won't grow or they will be suppressed in the long run by better adapted plants. So you have to take a look at what do we have here and what can we put there that will work. And there are different methods to do that and different opportunities. For one, we can use geoinformation data. You see on the bottom right, this is, for example, a soil type map. And when you have these informations, you can see, okay, the soil type here is loamy sand, for example, in this example. This works really good in open agricultural fields, for example. It's a little bit harder if you have inner city areas where, because of construction projects, the soil is moved around and you can not really rely on the on how good it reflects the actual conditions there. But if you want to be really precise, and that's what we mostly do on our the sites that we analyze, we do soil samples. So we go there, we take soil samples from different depth of the ground, and we take those soil samples and we send them into a laboratory, usually from the LUFA, and they analyze it in their lab and send us back a soil analysis report. And one excerpt of this such a report you can see on top And you then know what is the pH value, what is the nutrition value, what is the soil type, what is the content, for here example, of clay, of silt, of sand, what is the content of organic matter, what is the ratio between carbon and nitrogen. So you have soil information that you can collect. Also, you can do a plant mapping on the side with, for example, then use indicator values. You see down here, Antriscus sylvestris, which could indicate that the site is rather rich in nitrogen and nutrients. Also, you map the site with a site exposition, like how much sun does it get, how is the wind and the rainfall. All those conditions have to be considered to analyze this a location properly. And then you move on and have to make, oh, what's that? Yeah, and make a decision. Site analysis and mixture decision. So you know what's going on now on the site. Now you have to decide what to use. And the decision is based on the regional availability. Not every seed mixture is always available for every region in Germany. So you have to take a look at this, the nutrient richness of the soil, the moisture level, the pH value, the soil type, and also the use case. Obviously, you need a different mixture. When you're a farmer that wants to have a regional meadow that he can also feed to his cattle, or if you're a company site that only wants a really beautiful flower strip in front of the building. So the use case of obviously matters as well. A short excursus about mixture decision. Right now I'm writing my master thesis and I'm developing a planning tool for biodiverse real estate portfolios. And one function of this program is a seed mixture decision support tool, which calculates for every mixture available on the market the suitability for a site based on site properties, for example, the soil and the regional availability. Moving on, mixture preparation. On the left side, you see us weighting the seeds. And so, for example, sometimes you take different kind of mixtures and combine them together to get the results that you want. So you mix together different mixtures. You have to weight that, and you have to calculate that with the sowing density that you want to make. Wildflower stripes without grasses usually have a sowing density of around 1 gram per square meter, and wildflower meadows with a higher grass content, there it goes up to 3 to 5 grams a square meter. And the seeds in the seed mixture, they vary greatly in weight and in size. So you have really, really tiny and light seeds, but at the same time in the mixture, you have really big and heavy seeds. And then you have the muesli or the cereal effect. Like if you imagine a cereal pack, the big chunks, they will always sit on top, and the small ones, they will fall down to the bottom. And if you now go over a field, you will, and we have this effect, you will at first seed out every tiny seed and the big ones at the end. And you don't want that. You want to have a homogenic sowing picture. So you use filler material. And you use that filler material so the mixture doesn't separate in the sowing process. And usually this mixture is grounded soy or maize. And you mix it up to a sowing density together with the seeds, usually of around 10 gram per square meters. So you can make sure that it doesn't separate while you sow out the seeds. Take a look at the material that you use. Sometimes it's better to not use genetically modified soy produce, or if you have an agricultural field that is biocertified, it could cause problems if the soy is not biologically satisfied as well. So take a look at these things before you run into problems with government regulations. Then soil preparation, and soil preparation is really key for successful results. It has to be free from problematic weeds and has to be carefully prepared. What you usually do is you mow down or mulch down the existing vegetation, Then you plow or use a rotary tiller to get the black soil on top. And then you use a shallow seed, you make a shallow seedbed preparation, for example, with a harrow, to level it down to make a flat surface that is perfect for the seeding. Because the seeds are so tiny, they will fall down if you don't carefully prepare it. And those are light germinators, which can then cause problems. And the machine decision, it's a little bit tricky sometimes, and it's really location specific. You can't just say this is the process that we do everywhere. It depends on the size of the area. Sometimes there are obstacles on the field, for example, on a fruit tree orchard, then you have to use smaller machines. It depends on the soil type and the moisture level of the soil. It depends on the existing vegetation. So you have to adapt to the local conditions with your machinery. So moving on to the sowing process. You can see in the video right there, this is a drilling machine for agricultural fields. So this is for big areas on really big company areas or for agricultural field. And what you have to do first is calculate and set the sowing density on the machine. So we've calculated it already. Maybe this 10 grams per square meters. Then you go to the sowing machine and you turn a wheel a certain amount of times, which imitates an area that you seed out. And the seeds fall down here, as you can see. Maybe Tom, you can start the video again. And then you collect those seeds that have fallen out, you weigh it, and you compare it if it is the right amount. And then you know, okay, the sowing density is calculated correctly. Because I've already said, those are mostly light germinators. You have to always seed it on top of the soil, not into the soil, and then recompact it with a roller, so that it's recompacted with the soil. It has good connection to the soil, and then that the seed can also take up moisture from below the ground, and it's not solely dependent on rainfall. It's really important with those seeds because they will only germinate if they have around like 4 weeks good moisture levels. Otherwise, they won't grow. And also plan like 15 to 20% reserve material, because it can always happen that you have miscalculated, that the machine is a little unreliable, that the contractor that you depend on doesn't really care or something like that. So take a little bit reserve material so that you don't run out of seeds in the middle of the field of the area. And what's the time frame? Usually you sow out the regional mixes in spring, which can be from March to April or also into May, depending on the weather, and then in late summer from mid-August to late September. Now you have, there's a little video. There's the plowing. So you plow it over. This is the seeding process here. This is the filling material. Seeding process again. This is on the island of Rügen in the northeast of Germany. And here's the roller late at night. The contractor worked until 1 o'clock or something to get it done in one day. All right. So hopefully everything has worked out until now, and you have perfectly sowed out your seeds, which can be really expensive. Next thing is maintenance. Wildflower areas must be mowed to be maintained, to be preserved. And the timing and frequency of the mowing and the maintenance depends on the location and mixture. So for example, usually you can say more fertile locations need mowing more often and starting earlier. And when you have a high proportion of grasses in the mixture, the same. So do it more often and start earlier. Usually with meadows, you have to mow them 2 to 3 times a year, starting from May to October. And wildflower strips without grasses, usually it's enough to mow them once, usually in late summer. Tips and tricks: you can outsource the maintenance to a farmer. Sometimes they're happy when they get the material, and sometimes you as a person that just wants to do nature protection don't have a clue where to go with the material, and you have to really costly like get it to somebody that will take it away from you. Farmers can help out, and sometimes they have use for the organic material that comes then, the hay or whatever. And also, please use bar mowers, because the mortality of spinning technology is much, much higher than the mortality of cutting mowers that you can see it down there, that just cuts it down and lays it over, like on the video down there with the tractor, and also on top there. Those pictures and this little movie is from the city of Frankfurt. Those are ecological meadows in the city of Frankfurt, and we were consulting the contractor of the city on the ecological maintenance. The city wasn't quite satisfied with the maintenance over the last years, so we came in and analyzed the problems and opportunities for improvement in the company of the contractor. We analyzed how to improve the nature-friendly management, so to make it more, not kill as many insects, for example, and keep the plant diversity, as well as we analyzed the efficiency and communication in the process. And I guess that's that from my side.
So here I'm back. So that's it from our side. I hope you get a little overview, and really important, one or other might try their own projects. Feel free to contact us anytime via email, website, just give us a call, and we're more than happy to consult you and give you more tips if needed. And yeah, that's it for our side. From our side, I'd like to give the word back to Dirk. Thank you so much. And we're open for many questions.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Johnny. That was really a great overview of what you're offering and all the things to consider, which sometimes is a big burden for private organizations doing this. So I can imagine that it's a great market to get some help with doing these flower strips efficiently. So you already mentioned that you're open to question. So if you have a question, then please, there are already a number of questions in the chat. Benjes hedges, what are those? Invented by Johnny Benjes. Johnny, do you want to say a bit more of about what exactly Benjes hedges are?
I can. I've gotten into that already shortly because I've seen the question in the chat. So in Germany, those are called Benjes hedges, deadwood hedges, because my great uncle, he developed a method back in the 80s, and somehow this name has established. Originally, Benjes hedges were a method to grow more hedges in open areas, because in Germany, for example, the agricultural field is landscapes are cut down. There's nothing really there anymore, and lots of areas are just fields and monocultures. And the idea was just to take dead wood material, lay it in stripes through the landscape, and through natural succession, a new hedge will develop. So this is the original idea behind the Benjes hedges. And right now it's has taken also part in gardens and as nature conservation projects by just lining up those hedges. Maybe Tom, you can go to the measures. You can see that they're really good, where you can reuse cut down wood material, which creates a habitat not only for the succession, the plants that will grow after, but also for animals that are reliant on wood, on decomposing wood, and as nesting sites for birds, because it's really dense structure, this which will be used by some bird species, for example, as well, or eagle. I don't know what eagle means in English.
Hedgehog.
Hedgehog, yeah, hedgehogs. Yeah, they will go in there as well. Yeah, so much to the concept of Benjes hedges.
Right. Thank you. Next question is one that frequently arises, and I know that different seed companies have different opinions on that, so maybe it's interesting to see your opinion. Jenny asked, do you see advantages of adding grass seeds when sowing wildflowers? For example, because they can protect the wildflower seedlings. Or do you find that the grasses start competing with the wildflowers too soon if you include them?
I think
yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks for the question. Really important, and I can't really give a definitive answer to that. What you can see is it mostly depends on the properties of the soil. So if you have, for example, Lolium perennial or something in that, and you have a fertile soil, it will dominate, and the flowers will not really have a possibility to compete. If the soil is there's not a lot of nutrients in there, then yeah, the proportions from seeds to flowers will usually stay the same, especially if you use grass species that are not so dominative. But also it depends on the use case. Oftentimes, when an area should be used quite frequently and people should walk over it, it is important to put grasses in there because it protects the soil and yeah, for the soil protection, and also it looks better all year around because you have a green surface, and in winter it's not just dead plant material and open soil. So this is also a thing to be considered. And then it has something to do with the species that you want to help out. For example, if you only want to help flower visiting insects, some studies have shown also on our fields that those mixtures where grasses are included are not so good because the flower density is not that high. But on the other hand, there are other species, for example, grasshoppers, that are sometimes dependent on grass structures. But also there, if it's too dense, the grasshoppers won't live really good there because they are also dependent on a little bit of open soil to lay their eggs. So this is really, I'm sorry, I can't really give a definitive answer. It depends on your goal, on what everybody expects from the field. Yeah, and the nutrient richness of the soil, I guess.
All right. Yeah, it's definitely a very complex issue of how much grass should be in there. Moving to the financial issues. Next question by Jenny is, where do you get the funding for compensating farmers for their loss of land when turning a field into a permanent meadow?
This may be one for Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, we have two opportunities. The majority is financed through corporations between Immerbunt and partner companies or organizations. For example, we work really close together with a renting platform called Natuurhuisje from the Netherlands. And it's basically the same concept as of Airbnb. But the difference is that Natuurhuisje takes some percentage of their profits and reinvests them into nature projects such as Immerbunt. And in cooperation, we then seed flower meadows all over Germany and compensate, for example, crop losses of the farmer. The second one, and I can only talk for Germany, is an additional application for governmental subsidies, which are allowed because the farmer receives money out of the private sector plus the public sector, which is from the legal perspective allowed. So there are also fundings and subsidies. One is called AUM that supports such measures and projects and gives an additional profit. From a financial perspective, interesting for him to do some projects.
Yeah. So now the voice breaks. Difficult to hear the last issues, but I guess it's also something very regionally specific with different substitutions by different regional organizations. So you need to be creative as a farmer or as an NGO to get these kinds of measures. Right. I think the next question is something for Johnny again. Don't you bring up seeds or weeds by tilting the soil when preparing the seed bed? Last week, Janneke said that she is not plowing anymore and trying to not to disturb the soil as much. So maybe give your perspective.
Yeah, so it can happen. The decision, like I've said, which machinery to use is really location specific. And if you have, for example, a lot of vegetation on top, using a rotary tiller is not a good idea because you will just have a mixture of soil and vegetation on top. Then plowing, even though it is a heavy measure for the soil and the soil structure, is the best for the sowing success. And it depends on the soil, of course. If you regularly plow, the weed seeds that are like in the ground that you bring up again are oftentimes able to germinate again. But oftentimes it's not the case. And there's a method also where you just plow it over. It's called Schwarzbrache in German. So you plow it over and you do like 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a really, really shallow soil preparation just to kill every weed that germinates again. So you plow it over, you make a seed bed so the conditions are perfect for weeds to grow. You want them to grow. Then you go over shallow, kill them, wait. If another wave of weeds will germinate and grow, you kill them again. You can thin the weeds out this way. So yeah, it's like really location and also depending on the weather, for example, how much of a problem the weeds are.
All right.
But it's definitely true. Sometimes you just bring up weeds.
Okay. Next question is, do you do the maintenance as well? And if so, do you have all the specialized machinery you need to do? Or are you consulting other companies who have the machinery?
So usually we work together with contractors and we just look and analyze which is the best one, who has the best machinery. For example, a bar mower, which is for the maintenance important. And then we work together with them. But as Tom has mentioned in the beginning, we have fusioned with a big company which does green maintenance for cities and so on. So we have in Frankfurt those possibilities in the own company, but in other parts of Germany we are relying on companies that have the machinery.
Yeah, pretty sure it's difficult if you are working nationwide to have the machinery always at the right place. So yeah. Why are wildflower strips only mowed once in late summer and the meadows multiple times? Yes, mowing frequency and mowing times are important topic.
So it has to do with the percentage of grasses and flowers in there, because especially in the springtime and if the conditions are good and it's wet, the grasses, they will grow so quickly that they will dominate the flowers, which makes you have to mow earlier and also more often. It basically has to do with the light infiltration to the plants.
Okay.
So the more grass is in there, the more dense it is, the less light goes down to new germinating plants or the leaves on the ground. And if you don't have the grasses, it's much more thinner, and the sun goes down to the bottom. We've actually had a bachelor student, and she analyzed the vegetation structure in our fields and could show this effect really good, and the difference between mixtures with a high grass content to mixtures without grass content.
Okay, yeah, good. I guess the next question is to Tom again. How many employees do you have? And yeah. Up. Guess Tom
Okay.
dropped out. Maybe Johnny, you can add that.
Yeah. So Immerbunt works with in Immerbunt work around 5 people. We have a lot of people that help out on specific projects, but they're not, we can't really consider them like being part of the actual long-time full-time team. And the company in Frankfurt, the garden company, I don't know, 20, 30.
Yeah, so maybe one important aspect that hasn't really come up yet is how do you get your customers? What's the marketing side? Do they come to you because they have the incentive from themselves, or do you need to work hard to convince companies to redo their areas?
I think this is the best question for Tom. Tom, I don't know if you've heard it. How do we get customers? How do we get money to grow flower meadows or improve company premises? Is it hard work or or easy?
It's hard. So it's been we had night shifts and ringing doorbells. I think the easiest way is to talk with people and money givers that already have identified the problem. And the problem is that we not just have a water and climate crisis, it's also that we have a biodiversity crisis. And how do we find them? Well, we developed quite a concept until today, but it's well, look at the companies that have a need to, in order, rely on a functioning ecosystem or biodiversity. For example, in the food industry, all right? If the biodiversity decreases further, they have a problem because their cost of production will raise. And then you get in touch with them. Today, after 4 years, we have a special customer service tool integrated on our website, so we can trace every company, every majority that enters our website and see what they are looking at. And by that, we can identify our potential customer because we know what they are looking for considering solutions. And after that, we get in touch with them, present what we just showed you today, and just think about how we can solve their problems. And this is how we get together. Next to that, if you're a charity organization, it's much more simple. There are many institutions and organizations that provide money to your project, for example, if it's for a charity cause, and you can apply for funding in such organizations, such as which is the largest German organization, probably the DNB. It's the German Nature Stiftung. Johnny, do you know the word for Stiftung?
Foundation.
It's a foundation, yes, right. I didn't have the word, sorry. So there are many foundations that support such projects if you have a charitable cause.
Yeah, so there is or two more questions, or it's communication discussion starting over the question of mowing, and over time, when a meadow space is cared for by agricultural tractor tools, I find that a layer of organic grass litter can accumulate in the bottom since the tools don't cut low enough compared to traditional skies. Also, historical, the meadows were often grazed in autumn, which eliminated the litter. Yes, that's a very important aspect, Jenny, the difference between mowing, different types of mowing, grazing, and yeah, maybe you can comment on that, Johnny.
So usually it's said that the best mowing height is around 6 to 12 centimeters, so not too low because you can impact the plants. This is for meadows that are dependent on mowing, but it's different, and there are also the plant communities on grazed meadows. I don't know how it's called in English, Weide. So there are different plant communities, and that's all right if it's cut down lower. And we do have some projects where we have sheeps. For example, there's a orchard meadow in the middle of Germany, and we worked together with a farmer there and planted trees, and this is maintained by sheeps. And with the litter, the best technology to use is the traditional technology that in meadows that is used to make hay. So when you make hay, you cut it down, you let it rest, the seeds fall down, and then you have a hay tedder, like it turns around to dry it out, and then you have a rake that puts it together. And with these machines, you scrape also the litter in the ground together as well, which is quite helpful. And if you don't use it as hay, sometimes it's just cut down, moved away. But the best technique to maintain a meadow in the long time is to use the traditional methods to make hay out of it, and use also the machines that scrape together the litter that's between the plants.
Jenny, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I would say that I'm from Sweden, and I would say we consider a good quality cut of a meadow, like in the best meadows we have, is 3 to 5 centimeters, and anything above usually promotes the grasses over the forbs. But this can, I'm sure it's different if you're doing flower meadows on farmland. You might need to have species that are not the traditional side cut meadow type of species, and then maybe they need a bit more foliage to survive. So maybe there's a sort of something there. Also with the sheep, I hear that sheep kind of eat the wildflowers and leave the grasses, so that could be something to consider for people who think about the animal grazing. That maybe horses or cows would be a little bit better, I think.
Actually, sheep are one of the best landscape maintenance animals because of their eating habits, but as well because their hair takes up a lot of seeds, which makes the seed distribution pretty good. And horses, they graze really thin, so they make a golf lawn out of the field sometimes.
Yes, but they prefer grasses to forbs. So I think, this is too complex. We have 1 minute left, but thanks for the input.
Interesting.
Actually, the good thing about animals as well, in addition to that, is that they create open soil, and this is another good thing about animals.
Yeah. I guess we could go on with this topic, and also with the mowing type. Andreas, they may all put some important topic in there, that it's good to leave some part of some flower strips and meadows uncut. And based on a former Interact program in which I was involved, there was a part of the project showing that it's sometimes better not to mow in straight lines, but rather in curves to leave always some uncut places. So yeah, we can see that these kind of management of meadows is still something to be investigated and find different places. So lots of discussion going on. Thanks a lot, Johnny. Thanks a lot, Tom. We've come to the end of today's webinar. This has been really interesting and really encouraging to see that you can make such a company out of the idea of Flower Strip, that it's not a charity thing, and we need the expertise to do this properly. And I also like your idea, which we didn't talk about today, about combining these flower strips with pedagogical events and to really get people into maintaining their flower strips on site. So that's something definitely to do more in the future. Thanks a lot. I'm really grateful for your input. I'm grateful for all the questions in this webinar. And for those interested in this topic, please stay tuned. The next talk in 2 weeks, again, Thursday, 4:30, will be by Sarten Zeller, and Walter Bleker will talk about the German regional seed mix company in the seed mix landscape with important insights.